A warm welcome to all of you tuning in to our natural medicine show. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the remarkable discoveries of Nikola Tesla. I've prepared a small experiment that I'd love to share with you. Watch carefully. You can see how energy is being transferred through this metal rod, even though there's no direct contact at all. Do you see it? This Tesla technology is now available on the market, and as we'll soon hear from our experts, it has shown incredibly revolutionary potential in the field of medicine, based on many real-world observations. I'd now like to introduce my guest once again. He is a health analyst and an expert in this area. A warm welcome to you, dear Prezeberg. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much again for the invitation.
So quickly solve this puzzle then, if you can. How exactly is it possible that I can make this lamp light up here without actually having any direct contact at all?
Yes. This indeed traces all the way back to the remarkable invention by none other than Nikola Tesla himself. He lived from around 1870 until 1943, leaving behind a profound legacy. The exact circumstances surrounding his death remain somewhat unclear and mysterious. Perhaps he simply disappeared, though that isn't entirely certain or confirmed. In any case, countless people, many, consider him to be the greatest inventor of all time. There is also this famous anecdote where Albert Einstein was once asked by a curious journalist how it feels to be the smartest person in the world. He reportedly replied, or is said to have replied, that you should not ask me, but rather Nikola Tesla.
I have been a variety of different people.
And now we come to Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla discovered that there is not just one single electromagnetic wave.
Was that the Hertz one?
That was the Hertzian wave. Basically, you have a carrier wave, like FM radio at around 95.8. There you have a carrier wave. And on this carrier wave, this electromagnetic wave, you can impose an information frequency. That is what we then hear as radio. We don't hear the frequency itself. It's only for receiving, to go into resonance. We only practically hear what is modulated as information. Until Tesla, that was the state of things. And he said there is more. And that more is an electromagnetic wave that does not spread out like a radio signal all at once, like a sphere, but it is laser-like. And lasers can be used energy for energy. So this second electromagnetic wave,
Is that a longitudinal wave?
it is called a longitudinal wave. And, in honor of Tesla, it is also known as the Tesla wave. Some also call it a scalar wave, though I'm not completely sure it's exactly the same. But some do call it a scalar wave. In any case, it has the property of having a carrier wave. It carries information frequencies, which I can store on it. Plus, I can also store energy frequencies on it. This was basically how he, back then, enabled wireless energy transmission. And that is, I would say, a discovery with real significance. However, back then, he actually lost or pushed away his sponsor, because he wanted to prove, and did prove, that electricity can be transmitted without wires. And indeed, even on a large scale.
Just very briefly, nowadays you can buy modern phones that no longer need to be plugged into the socket. Instead, the battery charges just by placing them near a transformer. Does that also count as a longitudinal wave?
I suspect it like this. I don't know the details, but I suspect it's true. Anyway, he lost a sponsor back then. J.P. Morgan. Yes, J.P. Morgan, who owned radio stations. He just wanted his radio waves spread better, with improved sound and signal quality. Tesla did that. Tesla was a bit of a loner. He pushed forward his invention about how to conduct electricity wirelessly. Then he built a giant tower, a transmitter on one side, and a receiver a few meters away. He essentially created lightning here, sent it to the sky, and pulled the energy down on the other side. That cost him J.P. Morgan as a sponsor. Morgan was already operating on a large scale back then.
Back when I used to listen to the radio, I had FM, medium wave, and long wave. Was that long wave also the reason music could be sent very far over this Tesla wave?
These are simply frequencies, just normal electromagnetic hard waves.
There was nothing there.
There was absolutely nothing there at all. And even back then, he had already realized that these specific frequencies are practically extremely important for overall health and well-being. He had a studio, and there we sat together in front of a very large electromagnetic coil.
Yes, the picture is well known.
And he said that it inspires incredibly. He didn't discover many things himself. They were given to him. He believed it heightened intuition. And there's also an anecdote involving Mark Twain during his stay. He was friends with Tesla and was extremely fond of him. When Twain was near Tesla's coil, he had his best ideas for his stories. What most don't know is that soon a book will be published called Nikola Tesla, the Unknown Healer. Tesla was deeply involved in health. At one time, for some reason, he was in Stockholm. There was a school for children with intellectual disabilities, about 50 students with 2 different classrooms. Without anyone knowing where it was installed, Tesla placed his coils in one classroom. After some time, only the students in that room were affected. The others stayed in normal rooms. Then the director said that if they continued the experiment for another year, the intellectually disabled children would practically surpass the normal children in intelligence. Tesla's demand back then, as he was always radical in his ideas towards society, was that these coils must be installed in all classrooms to practically maximize children's intellectual potential.
Did he then also energize these coils with power?
They were electromagnetic coils. This knowledge was then passed on and partly used by various other scientists. One very prominent scientist in this field was Ewald Paul, a doctor specializing in high-frequency technology, who wrote entire books about field application methods and what can be achieved with them. However, back then, the coils looked different. They were coils you would actually sit between. George Lakowski, a Russian engineer, further developed this idea. He designed these coils where people sat in between. He had remarkable success in healing, something hard to imagine today. There is a book from 1934 about it. In the introduction, it is written that the apparatus was successfully used across countries from Sweden to Uruguay, Spain, and even the, quote, White Devil, where it was widely applied at that time. Then comes the key sentence for me. The results exceeded all expectations. The results exceeded all expectations. There are photographs from that time, around 1934, showing, for example, an 82-year-old woman who had malignant melanoma. Back then, there were no photo manipulations or anything like that. It was simply the truth. She had such a large cancerous growth, it was huge. After 2 treatments, it was reduced to only 10%. Then they treated her again for a month, and it was completely gone. Her entire face was fully rejuvenated, returning to its original youthful appearance.
This seems to me like some kind of energy transfer. But before we dive into this topic, by this Ewald Paul.
Ewald Paul, yes.
And there are definitely still many information materials from Lakowski that have been found again.
Many of these things were basically on the index, the books were banned. But we practically downloaded PDFs for interested people, which we provide and gladly share, because what happened back then is simply fascinating.
Where can one find these documents?
On quantasana.ch, you can download these PDFs. This is really fascinating. Especially this Ewald Paul, there are field application notes for nearly every illness you can imagine. In fact, they practically treated everything from A to Z, from allergies to cysts. However, they did have disadvantages. That must be clearly said. For example, these Lakowski waves, even today he called it a multi-wave oscillator. The idea was to address every cell, but back then they had no way to measure each cell's or tissue unit's natural frequency. So they said that they needed, in effect, millions of carrier waves offering every frequency so each cell had a chance to resonate with something. Then the cell's own resonance would occur. If this is doubled, it increases the amplitude and energy in that cell. So they offered millions of carrier waves at once. But these carrier waves had a drawback. They also resonated with metal.
What does that mean? Actually, I heard that before.
When metal resonates, this happens. If I have a very strong electromagnetic wave, full of energy, and it hits metal, sparks can form. Or the tissue around the metal can heat up a lot. Temperatures can reach 200 degrees, which destroys all tissue around such an implant.
If I had a titanium implant right now, then this could happen.
Or a dental implant, or an artificial knee joint that contains metal parts or something like that. They had this disadvantage back then. Even today, some parts still have it. There are various providers of frequency technologies. Some devices cost 25, others cost over 50,000 euros. They still carry this disadvantage.
That's exactly it. That's still in there, without any doubt. Lakowski.
Multi-wave oscillator, as you might know.
This is the old guard, where solid metal still resonates just like that right now.
Perhaps they have adjusted the technologies a bit today, but I know from a few devices that they definitely work with resonances, metal in resonance. I have a dermatologist client who owns a device costing 53,000 euros, and it resonates with metal. I cannot judge whether they all still do so today. I don't have to. But the danger is definitely there. It must not go into resonance. Otherwise, I basically cannot use it without concerns.
These questions come up again and again. Can I somehow control my head if I still have titanium teeth or gold alloys in me somewhere?
Not just now, actually. Another issue they had earlier was that they pretty much avoided treating the head altogether. They weren't entirely sure if it might cause any negative side effects. So as a result, they mostly left the head out of the treatment. But now, with the new advanced technologies available, like with the Zeltener here, I can confidently treat everything without any worry, including the head.
Why don't I get any response anymore now?
Russian scientists have successfully managed to make sure that these specific electromagnetic waves resonate only with water and nothing else.
That means my body water actually starts to gently vibrate and gains a certain specific structure.
Let's say everything is made up of very large parts of water. For example, in the brain I have 90% water content, in the blood 94%, and in the eye 94% as well. Overall, I believe the lungs are about 86% water content, and about 99% of all my molecules in a human body are water molecules. These are the ones I interact with, address, charge with energy, and make hexagonal.
Could you maybe explain this to me a bit more? Because I still have trouble understanding when I put energy into the water, beside the water, or all around it, and there are some gold alloys involved. This water keeps gaining more and more energy. So why isn't the energy transfer from the water to the metal happening?
To be honest, I can't really answer that for you, but it is not going to happen.
Yes, I know. It is always cold there.
It only gets warm practically where there are many water molecules, where basically there are inflammations, where germs are present, where fittings exist, where simply something is not right. It warms up only practically because energy is absorbed there. Then cell membrane potential may increase, and mitochondria become activated, but only where there is a weak spot. And remember, metal does not belong inside the body. That's just how it is. Russian scientists achieved something brilliant by making these electromagnetic waves and energy pulses resonate only with water, allowing them to charge only water energy.
Now let us just take a moment and complete this circle fully. What is now truly possible with these kinds of innovative therapies to help with physical discomfort in our modern times?
I would say it is probably the most brilliant form of prevention one can have. We've often talked about hexagonal water before. Hexagonal water is the most important thing you can give a body. Pure hexagonal water, energetically charged. This water is anti-inflammatory, this water is antioxidant, this water detoxifies, and this water enables the body to absorb much more energy. There are a few aspects only discussed in very special books. With the hexagonal layers, I basically have the basic structure of a battery. The hexagonal layers are negatively charged. The bulk water is positively charged. The trigger to activate this battery is sunlight. Then I have a natural battery in my body. Now it gets even more intense in these free electron plasmas that form in hexagonal water. They tunnel, you have to imagine, through microtubules into the quantum vacuum. The quantum vacuum consists of dark energy and dark matter. That makes up 96% of our universe. In this quantum vacuum, there is infinite energy. The energy density is 10 to the power of 94 per cc. So, infinite energy. Now these electrons, these free electron tunnels, tunnel there in a way. They get energy, then bring it back. In my opinion, this is why the phenomenon of light nourishment can work. There are people, scientifically proven, who eat and drink very little. Many actually eat nothing at all. Some don't even have to drink anything. How can this work if they don't lose weight? It can only happen through energy frequencies. I can only explain it through phenomena, where electrons pick up energy somewhere. Of course, they also live off sunlight, the Earth's magnetic field, cosmic radiation. But the remaining 25% of energy, they must get somehow. They get it from the quantum vacuum, I am quite sure of that, and it works through free electrons.
Of course, I didn't fully understand everything in the chemistry class over the last 5 minutes. I felt a bit overwhelmed.
That is a bit hardcore, I have to say that.
Yes, especially with this energy transfer into that vacuum field. Could you please explain it a bit more using simpler words and maybe provide a few more details to help me better understand?
Is that really so? What exactly is the universe made of?
Just a whole lot of nothing, isn't it?
No, Nix is definitely not nothing at all.
Everything is included in absolutely nothing at all here.
The latest official NASA numbers show that 96% of the universe consists of 68% dark energy and 28% dark matter. Okay, that leaves us with 4%. Today, we focus on technologies related to this 4%, maybe looking at and exploring 1 or 2% of it. So what exactly is this? We really need to understand what the quantum vacuum is. It is precisely not nothing. All gravitational fields and everything in the universe are somehow connected with it. And it's known that the smaller something gets, surprisingly, the more energy it contains. You know, when you burn paper, a certain amount of energy is released. Coke, which is more compressed, releases even more energy. That's where you can start forging swords. Now, going smaller, a hydrogen bomb requires less than 1 gram of material. Less than 1 gram of material. How much energy does that release? And now, in the sun, it's not about fission anymore, but fusion. 2 hydrogen atoms merge to form helium. How much energy is released there? It is almost infinite. Now I go even smaller, into the quantum vacuum. The energy density there is 10 to the power of 94. That is a 1, followed by 94 zeros. Essentially, infinite. And nature has tricks for accessing this energy. Plants use it too. And hexagonal water is key here, because only when I have hexagonal water in my body do I have these free electron plasmas that can tunnel into this quantum vacuum.
Going back a bit to this hexagonal water, is the structure of the hexagonal water formed by these long waves, or is it created by these shortwave frequencies?
Because of the complexity found in these energies and their information frequencies.
And the excess electrons, which ultimately produce those important anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, also come through these energy carriers, right?
No, it works a little differently. For example, if I have hexagonal water, I have hexagonal structures. I have ring structures. Water molecules usually have the biochemical formula H2O. In hexagonal water, 6 oxygen atoms bond together, with hydrogen atoms between them, forming a ring structure. This is similar in carbon chemistry, for instance, benzene. That's why all plant substances, like secondary plants, polyphenols, which are the most potent antioxidants, all have benzene rings in their structure. That means all. Even our 4 amino acids that make up DNA have hexagonal carbon atoms. Ultimately, there are chains attached, but benzene rings are everywhere. This is important, because with these 6-membered rings, fewer atoms are needed. These atoms can share electrons that move around outside, in a kind of probability cloud. Since electrons are shared, additional free electrons are available. These free electrons then form hexagonal layers, where neutrons, electrons, and plasma form below and above these layers. These act as antioxidant supermen, essentially neutralizing trillions of free radicals.
So it's definitely worth taking time to think about this hexagonal structure.
This is the most important property of water. I don't understand why it isn't really discussed publicly. In the past, we had this. Natural spring water is hexagonal. I believe Munster's glacier water is hexagonal too, and those people live to be 120 years old. As an essential food, this hexagonal water is with you. But if I conduct water over a kilometer, the water is dead, destructured, no longer alive. It is not hexagonal. It's not cell-accessible or cell-penetrable. It's too large, it's macroclastic. It has to be microclastic, hexagonal. Then I get the best results. I can make hexagonal water with this treatment. But what's truly extraordinary is I can make body fluids hexagonal as well. In a 75-kilogram man, these fluids weigh 44 kilograms.
Yes, this is madness. I have one final question. I actually thought that the electron transfer into this hexagonal water is missing because of the rod.
It forms automatically. But here, additional electrons come in through energy as well. You must recognize that. I simply say, the most important measure is hexagonality and cell membrane voltage, supporting the body to increase that voltage.
Because in another show, you once explained to me that a healthy cell has a membrane potential of about -70 to -80 millivolts. And if this potential drops, then illness, inflammation, and pain come along with it. And when you perform this electron transfer, this kind of stimulation, the cell membrane potential rises again. And I interpret this to mean that electrons enter the cell, that energy is restored within the cell, causing the potential to go up.
And really, I need electrons for everything. For example, if I now have a cancer cell and a tumor is growing, it doesn't grow because new cells constantly form, but because the old ones won't leave. They stay in the cell membrane, sticking and binding together this time. Then, in the mitochondria, there is a complex called the citrate complex. In this complex, 3 to 4 capable electrons are missing. If I supply electrons to this complex, which I can do through food, that helps. Johanna Budewig proved this back in 1951, so you need to take linseed oil, regular milk plus fat from quark. Mix it well and take it with me. This way, I feed this complex with the missing electrons. Then, the old cell can separate again, and the process of apoptosis occurs, meaning the cell dies. So basically, I have prevented the tumor from growing bigger. Johanna Budewig already knew this in 1951, so I must ensure these cells get plenty of electrons. Electrons transfer information, carry energy, and mitochondria work a lot with electrons. So the more electrons I have inside, the better it is.
That is actually all from Tesla, and it happened a long time ago.
He had already thought everything through back then. That's why he worked extensively in healthcare and often supported himself with his own devices. That is truly remarkable. It's really a disgrace that such an ingenious technology is disappearing.
At the cafe earlier, you said a really great sentence that I'd like to quote again. You told me it seemed, in your opinion, to be the holy grail of medicine that Tesla had invented.
And especially hexagonal water is, for me, the most important nourishment people, animals, and plants can be given.
Dear Peter, many heartfelt thanks for this broadcast and for all the information about Tesla's technology involving Lakowski. What was the other name mentioned?
Ewald, Paul, and George Lakowski were basically the most important people. But there were over 500,000 devices from various generations that had certain technical disadvantages we no longer have today.
Everything is gone.
Everything is gone.
Now we are back again.
Now we're back again. Only better.
So, dear viewers, you're hearing it. Tesla truly was a marvel. Even today, we can look with wide, amazed eyes at all he created. And now, again, like just now, how simply a bulb, a light bulb, or a fluorescent tube can be lit up just like that. And to grasp this idea, what it does to the body is absolutely fascinating. So, dear viewers, I wish you all the best and enlightenment as I have experienced it today. All the best for the future, and until next time, goodbye everyone.
For legal reasons, we are required to inform you that, according to current scientific standards and conventional medical understanding, the existence of informational fields, their possible medical significance, and the research inspired by Nikola Tesla and Georges Lakowski are not officially recognized, as there is no sufficient evidence in the sense of mainstream medical science. Please also keep in mind that using a Tesla oscillator should never be seen as a replacement for visiting a qualified doctor or a certified healthcare professional.